Uganda.
Happy Women Crash Wednesday to all of you, our Good Morning Uganda family. Mid-week happiness is finally here. We are, trying to make sure that we see how to deal with the first part of the week as we are transcending into the second part. Good Morning Uganda officially starts right now. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and today is the 16th of November 2022. Again, with the usual suspects with me this morning, Mollen, Felix and Robert. Welcome back from the speech of His Excellency Kaguta Museveni, where he did have some special communication he had to make, especially in concernment with the Ebola crisis that we are dealing with as a country. He did talk about very many things, but one of the things I really liked that actually gave me hope, when the statistics were being put out there, I'm pretty sure if you watched it as well, you realize that the number of recoveries is actually way higher than the people we have lost, and even the current victims. Of course, it has spread to new districts, looking at districts like Jinja and Masaka, but also we have to appreciate the fact that the recoveries are way higher. Now, there is hope, and from the big man over there who said that we actually can prevent Ebola. We can deal with it way better than COVID-19 and any other serious issue or pandemic that has ever happened. So that is clearly quite a green light, and he did say that we just need to change our behavior and our lifestyle. Of course, I know when it comes to changes as Ugandans, this is something that is quite hard for us to adapt to. I've never understood why, or it's just in human nature how easy or how hard it is for people to adapt to change or behavior. So I don't know. It is entirely up to you. But good morning, Robert. How are you doing?
I'm very fine. Good morning, my sister, the entire team, and of course our viewers. Thank you so much for waking up with us. Now, you've just talked about the big man, the head of state, the fountain of honor, who yesterday addressed the nation again on issues regarding Ebola. But for me, I think I'm happy because when he says that out of 146 districts, you find that we only have Ebola in 6 districts. That's not good. But at least when we look at how wide it has been spread, and when we look at recovery standing at 73, and of course it is sad that we've lost 55 people to Ebola, and also have about 13 undergoing treatment. But I would say, I believe there's so much that has been done, and I believe if we change exactly what he said, our behaviors, and get more serious. When he said Kampala people have not yet understood that there is Ebola, I felt like sometimes we think the elite are in the city, people have exposure in the city. So how come they're the very people that take long to understand compared to the people of Unyangabo that he credited for having understood this very well? So first I want to thank His Excellency for continuously coming up and telling Ugandans the challenges we are facing and what should be done. Of course, warnings there for the border riders, well, you have to up your game, otherwise things may not be very good for you. Also, I think it's very important that every Ugandan, when His Excellency is speaking, you listen very well. Otherwise, you may end up being inconvenienced. Now, trucks carrying logs into Kasanda and Mubende. You may have the business there and you hear that your truck has been impounded. So it's always important that we give attention to this. But also something that really interested me yesterday is the National Union of Teachers coming up and saying they should have 8 years of primary. Now, I was like, some people feel 7 is so much. Now we shoot up to 8, but anyway, that is a proposal that they are forwarding to the Education Review Commission that is gathering views, and finally they'll come back up with a report that will guide this sector very well. So for me, I think there's so much that is happening, but one thing is, I have a feeling sooner than later we may defeat Ebola if we work together.
Absolutely. The only problem I find here, especially when he did talk about how people, the residents of Kampala and even the health workers, the reason as to why they haven't yet understood or how this disease spreads or the dynamics in it, people are quite adamant, they're still taking it for granted, maybe because they haven't felt it as much as the districts of Mubende and Kasanda have. you know, they feel like there is still some space and some time. So maybe people are quite adamant to heeding to the information that has been put out there, but I wouldn't really want to wish that wrath on us. You need to be very open to all the information you can get. Good morning, Felix. How are you doing?
Morning, Philo. What a morning it is today, and it's one of those good mornings, I must say.
It is.
Do you want to know why?
Yes, I do.
Well, of course, yesterday we were amazed and mammoth by the beautiful news we got from the Grammys, you know, that one of our own, Idrissa Msuza, was nominated for the Grammys Awards, the 65th annual Grammys Awards, and definitely he will be in that category of global performance. And he does, that was on his song with Matt B, Gimme Love, a song he did a couple of months ago, by the way. And I think it's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. He's the first Ugandan, first East African, probably and Central African, and many, many other places in the world that have never heard of such nominations.
Yes.
So for me, I think one of the biggest trends of this country lately ceases to be Amin Dada, and probably will be in the beacons of the likes of Idrissa Msuza. Many celebrations. For me, I think it's a big deal. And many, many Ugandans out there. Yet again, we are going to see Uganda's name being held high up there. Many people, by the way, in the USA don't even know of a country called Uganda. And they only get to know of such things or a country when such nominations happen.
These are the people doing the PR for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
as a country.
So just after a very, very successful concert, now we see a very, very good nomination. And for us, it's definitely what he said, that this is Uganda to the world. And we hope that we get this Grammy. I can't wait. The excitement is quite up there. But something else that was quite incredible or quite mind-baffling was this whole idea of 8 years of primary kids.
Yes.
It's another one, I guess. Let me
you
just
haven't yet even processed. You're still in shock.
It's another one.
But anyway. Yeah.
Of music. Our ghetto kids are performing today. When we talk about the World Cup, and they'll be performing on a number of events that are aiming at World Cup. So today they have a mega performance. And of course, when we talk about the ghetto kids, slightly Eddie Kenzo Muzusa also comes in. Because when I last knew of these, I first got to know of these kids when they were performing one of his songs, when the Sitialosi,
which was the BET award winner.
Yeah, then I later picked interest to know where they come from, their history. So now they're in Qatar and they're there to perform. And one thing I like, they're always moving with our flag around their bodies, carrying it. They had a press conference, by the way, yesterday. They also talk about themselves, and at the back of everything was the Uganda flag. And I'm like, okay.
The things that make me smile. Good morning, Mollen. How are you doing?
Yes, a very good morning to you. I'm doing great. Clearly, I also share the same excitement with Felix this morning. Guys, we are talking about the Grammys. The Grammys. And Eddie Kenzo has actually been nominated in one of those categories you're looking forward to, the Best Global Performance category, and I can tell you that you can see light at the end of the tunnel. He is actually likely to take that award. His music has been going across, and even the nomination alone will take him miles, and that means it's also taking Uganda miles. And for me, I'm excited about that. Clearly, he has worked his way towards that. The BET was just a start from the look of things now. And now that he's at the Grammys, I can assure you that well, Uganda is looking quite different. And of course, I was here asking myself, do we have a +1 to that?
Mollen is being very strategic.
I know, I know. And obviously, we do congratulate him upon that nomination. And we know that he will be holding the Ugandan flag up high there. But also talking about the Ugandan flag, Philomena, we still have COP27 going on in Egypt.
Yes.
And so far, what we do know is that some of the actions that are coming across from this conference are that we're going to have to accelerate our plans in terms of making sure that we can cut emissions now. Do you know what this means? It actually means that we're going to be forced to go into renewable energy. It's no longer a debate. We're going to be forced into bringing more electric vehicles on the roads, but also invest more in solar And I think lately we've also seen that we're not doing well with our hydropower energy, with the vandalism going on and all this load shedding. We need alternatives, and of course the alternatives will now be looking into also investing in more solar energy and wind energy. This is what countries are pushing for and still coming in. We know that negotiations are still going on, and we could be looking at more of these drastic action plans coming across from COP. And at this point, as a nation, if you party to this conference of parties to UNFCCC, it means that most of the decisions that are being made at COP, countries will have to adhere to that. And of course now they're serious, they're putting restrictions, they're saying implementation is key. That is what is coming across. And also you look at the fact that just recently the UN Population Agency did announce that so far we've gotten to the 8 billion people, and the world population is now 8 billion, and that will have to mean that you have more to take care of. And of course they're also saying that climate action goes a long way into us preserving that population, or even looking at how we maintain such a pace on how we grow. For the next 12 years is when we could expect to even get more into the 9 billion. But otherwise, we need to also look into climate action. That is the message that was coming across. And of course, more of that we will be looking at in the weather segment.
Let's pray and hope that when we go to renewable energy, it's going to be more cheaper. Because yesterday, I don't know if some of these monies people speak about them. You know, Uganda Electricity Transmission Body came up yesterday and said the 5 damaged panels, that is where we saw in Mukono and then Jinja, that they need 1 billion Uganda shillings plus to repair them.
Yeah.
And I was like, 1 billion? And they said every year in their budget they put 2 billion Uganda shillings just to replace vandalized facilities used in transmitting electricity. Now I'm like, 2 billion shillings.
Yes. Put
there, because Ugandans are going to come and steal poles, steal wires, cut down terminals and all this. Well, that is a lot of money. So if they put 2 billion, now we are going to use 1 billion because it's an emergency. I hope with renewable energy we won't have what Ugandans are able to steal. So that will continue.
They could still be stealing the solar panels and all that, but still also hydro energy. You look at that as being sustainable, and we're still vandalizing that. But you also look at the tariffs that Philomena has put across. People are paying for this kind of electricity. It means the money is coming in. However, it doesn't mean that people should be able to go into vandalism. Now, the expectation is that, especially with the facilities for wind energy, if you look at that, this costs billions and billions of money, and people will be doing their country injustice to steal stuff like that.
Ugandans, they don't think about doing injustice.
It's very, very
interesting. Climb a pole, go with a KCCA light, you know, and they'll light a street. The first 6 months you pass through and you're like, are we in Uganda?
Well, then one problem that we always have here in Uganda is the inconsistencies. They're very irritating and disgusting. Yeah. Well, getting back also, yesterday we had our parliament in session, and they were still emphasizing the fact of restoring order on our Ugandan roads. And while they were submitting their, statistics and all, one of the things they did talk about was also the number of bicycle-related traumas has gone up. Now, previously we've been talking about the borders, we've been talking about the vehicles, but even the bicycles. And it's no wonder that they're pushing that we should have standardized speed limits. And one of the things we're talking about that each district should be able to push for about 50 kilometers per hour. And when it comes to the residential areas, we should be looking at about 30 kilometers per hour. Now, if you're way beyond that, you should be fined heavily. That's a very good proposition, but how will it be implemented without all the usual hindrances that we always come across? And I believe that if we really pulled through or followed through with these propositions, clearly we would be able to deal with the road carnages on the roads, not just only in the urban centers, but even when you cross over to the outskirts of town or even these other areas in the countryside. Now, how far will we go to make sure that we restore this sanity on our roads? It's entirely up to us. Good morning, Uganda is still going on. We are going through our local stories and international stories. What's happening around you, what's happening in the East African region. And when you cross over beyond Africa, what's happening out there? Well, Roberts, what are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at KCCA yesterday that repossessed Chiseka Market. It was drama, and of course security was very high on alert, heavy deployment as KCCA officials were responding to the directive of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. The deployment follows a presidential directive ordering KCCA to repossess all markets which had earlier been tendered to private individuals. There was heavy deployment of security at Chiseka Market in the early morning hours of yesterday. KCCA Executive Director Dorothy Kisaka led the team that included State House Presidential Representative Major Emma Kutesa, who explained to the market leaders and traders how KCCA was taking back the market. This follows a presidential directive on all markets owned by government that had earlier been tendered to private individuals. The traders were happy, and it marked an end to exploitation by various managements.
Now, Uganda loses over 800 million on daily basis on treatment of patients involved in road carnage. Now, findings by the Parliamentary Committee on Health shows that the major causes of road accidents include poor state of roads, poor enforcement, vehicles and motors, bicycles, dangerous mechanical conditions, and the committee chairperson, Koboko Municipality, MP Charles Ayume, represented the report that shows Ministry of Works and Transport irregular issuance of license and permits.
Now, moving on, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has tasked the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives to institute stringent regulations for the scrap industry as a means of reducing electricity infrastructure vandalism. The State Minister for Energy, Okasi Sidronas Opolot, attributed the increasing infrastructure vandalism on the lousy regulations regarding scrap business. The investigation reports indicate vandalizing electricity equipment is traded to scrap dealers. To minimize the loss, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development wants strict regulations for one to operate a scrap business.
The National Organization of Trade Unions has moved a vote of no confidence against its chairman, General Wilson Owere, asking him to appeal to the next delegates conference to be held early next year. Owere was accused of usurping powers by calling himself that is a tilter head of the organization, a position which does not exist, attempting to close no two accounts of causing dispute to the organization and failing to handle 3 council meetings. Members of the General Council petitioned the Registrar of Labor Unions contesting the conduct of the chairperson, and the Registrar of Labor Unions gave powers to the General Council of NATO to handle their internal issues. In a meeting for members of the different trade unions, the members elected Mugore Mauku Stefan, acting chairperson of the National Organization of Trade Unions.
And crossing over to the international scene, starting off with former President Donald Trump on Tuesday filed his paperwork establishing his candidacy to run for the presidency again in 2024. Now, Trump's paperwork landed with the Federal Election Committee shortly before he was expected to make his announcement at Mar-a-Lago, his Florida waterfront estate. Now, on the brink of a campaign launch that elicits both enthusiasm and dread from different corners of his own party, Trump's quest to return to the Oval Office could face untold obstacles in the months to come, even with his lawyer base family intact. He has spent the days since the midterm elections fending off criticism from fellow Republicans over his ill-fated involvement in key contests, furiously lashing out at 2 GOP heavyweights who could complicate his path to the White House if they mount their own presidential campaigns, and fretting that he or associates could soon be indicted by federal investigators in 2 separate Justice Department probes. Now, looking at the statistics of the world population, the United Nations says the world's population is projected to reach the 8 billion mark. And the projection came in a UN report released in July, which said much of the growth expected between now and 2050 is coming from just 8 countries. Now, half of those are in sub-Saharan Africa: Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. The UN said populations in that region are growing at 2.5%, more than 3 times the global average. Still, experts say the bigger threat to the environment is consumption, which is highest in developed countries not undergoing big population increases. The report also said that India is expected to overtake China next year as the world's most populous country. The upward trend threatens to leave even more people in developing countries further behind as governments struggle to provide enough classrooms and jobs for a rapidly growing number of youths, and food insecurity becomes an even more urgent problem. It projected that the world's population will reach approximately 8.5 billion in 2030, 9.7 billion in 2050, and 10.4 billion in 2100. Now, other countries rounding out the list with the fastest growing populations are Egypt, Pakistan, the Philippines, and India.
And in Rwanda, a Rwandan member of parliament who resigned from parliament on Monday has apologized for drink driving. Now, on Monday, parliament approved a resignation of Gamariel Mbonimana for personal reasons. It was a day after President Paul Kagame criticized an MP who he did not mention the name for drunk driving. In a statement on Twitter, Mr. Gamariel apologized to the Rwandans and the president, adding that he has decided not to take alcohol anymore. Now, Mr. Gamariel confirmed to the BBC that the tweet is authentic, and drink driving carries a fine of 150,000 Rwandan francs, an equivalent of $140 and 5 days in police custody following an arrest. In his remarks over the weekend, Mr. Kagame criticized police for not arresting the MP because of his immunity. Now, the MP has been there since 2018, and he is a member of the Liberal Party, an ally of Mr. Kagame's ruling party, RPF. Now, Liberal Party's Vice President, Theogene Munyangeyo, told the state broadcaster that they had never seen him drink alcohol before. And in climate news, activists on Tuesday urged COP27 summit leaders and major technology companies to take action against climate change misinformation that is undermining efforts to limit the devastating effects of global warming. In an open letter signed by 550 groups and individuals, including former UN climate chief Christiana Figueres, the activists called on COP27 delegates to adopt a common definition of climate misinformation and false information and to work to prevent it. They also called on the bosses of 7 digital giants, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, to put in place strict policies to prevent the spread of false climate information on their platforms, as they did with COVID-19. The letter was also signed by the diplomat Lawrence Tibiana, one of the architects of the 2015 Paris Agreement, who forms the current basis for global goals to curb climate change. The letter is accompanied by a survey released on Tuesday on the extent of the belief in climate misinformation in 6 major countries, that is Australia, Brazil, Britain, Germany, India, and the United States, lamenting that a large proportion of their population believed false claims about climate change.
There you go, more updates from COP27. Of course, we'll be coming in from Mollen when we get to the weather and climate segment. But for now, we'll be talking about looking after yourself, prioritizing your health. What do you do every day? What's your routine? And what definitely do you consider as something you wouldn't live without when it comes to your health? At least one thing I know for sure is that Robert over here, one of your skin routines, I'm pretty sure are those bottles you're holding.
Well, all things can come to a standstill if you're not healthy. You may not go to your place of work. You may not visit that person you want to visit. You may not hang out or have any event of socialization because, well, they'll ask, where's so and so? He's sick and not feeling well. Now, for you not to miss any of those, here is the magic. And it's just 1,500. Hallelujah, banana juice. Hallelujah, tamarind drink. And hallelujah, jinga tea. What these bottles do is they boost your immune system every morning. Make sure you take one any time of the day, by the way. You can take any of these bottles and I guarantee you, you'll be healthy and people will wonder, when does this person ever fall sick?
Well, Women Crush Wednesday, and we're going in for that one song for this Wednesday morning. When we get back, Good Morning Uganda newsreel is queued up, and we'll be talking about quite a lot where we'll be expecting you to be part of it. You could get onto our socials and, give us your 2 cents on the topic that will be up for discussion that we'll be sharing with you in just a few minutes. For now, we go in for a break. When we get back, more on Good Morning Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Happy Women Crush Wednesday to all of you, our Good Morning Uganda family. Mid-week happenings is finally here. We are, trying to make sure that we see how to deal with the first part of the week as we are transcending into the second part. Good Morning Uganda officially starts right now. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and today is the 16th of November 2022. Again, with the usual suspects with me this morning, Mollen, Felix and Robert. Welcome back from the speech of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, where he did have some special communication he had to make, especially in concernment with the Ebola crisis that we are dealing with as a country. He did talk about very many things, but one of the things I really liked that actually gave me hope, when the statistics were being put out there, I'm pretty sure if you watched it as well, you realize that the number of recoveries is actually way higher than the people we have lost, and even the current victims. Of course, it has spread to new districts, looking at districts like Jinja and Masaka, but also we have to appreciate the fact that the recoveries are way higher. Now, there is hope, and from the big man over there who said that we actually can prevent Ebola. We can deal with it way better than COVID-19 and any other serious issue or pandemic that has ever happened. So that is clearly quite a green light, and he did say that we just need to change our behavior and our lifestyle. Of course, I know when it comes to changes as Ugandans, this is something that is quite hard for us to adapt to. I've never understood why, or it's just in human nature how easy or how hard it is for people to adapt to change or behavior. So I don't know. It is entirely up to you. But good morning, Robert. How are you doing?
I'm very fine. Good morning, my sister, the entire team, and of course our viewers. Thank you so much for waking up with us. Now, you've just talked about the big man, the head of state, the fountain of honor, who yesterday addressed the nation again on issues regarding Ebola. But for me, I think I'm happy because when he says that out of 146 districts, you find that we only have Ebola in 6 districts. That's not good. But at least when we look at how wide it has been spread, and when we look at recovery standing at 73, and of course it is sad that we've lost 55 people to Ebola and also have about 13 undergoing treatment. But I would say I believe there's so much that has been done, and I believe if we change exactly what he said, our behaviors, and get more serious. When he said Kampala people have not yet understood that there is Ebola, I felt like sometimes we think the elite are in the city, people have exposure in the city. So how come they're the very people that take long to understand compared to the people of Unyangabo that he credited for having understood this very well? So first I want to thank His Excellency for continuously coming up and telling Ugandans the challenges we are facing and what should be done. Of course, warnings there, for the border riders, that, well, you have to up your game, otherwise things may not be very good for you. Also, I think it's very important that every Ugandan, when His Excellency is speaking, you listen very well. Otherwise, you may end up being inconvenienced. Now, trucks carrying logs into Kasanda and Mubende. You may have the business there and you hear that your truck has been impounded. So it's always important that we give attention to this. But also something that really interested me yesterday is the National Union of Teachers coming up and saying they should have 8 years of primary. Now, I was like, some people feel 7 is so much. Now we shoot up to 8, but anyway, that is a proposal that they are forwarding to the Education Review Commission that is gathering views, and finally they'll come back up with a report that will guide this sector very well. So for me, I think there's so much that is happening, but one thing is, I have a feeling sooner than later we may defeat Ebola if we work together.
Absolutely. The only problem I find here, especially when he did talk about how people, the residents of Kampala and even the health workers, the reason as to why they haven't yet understood or how this disease spreads or the dynamics in it, people are quite adamant, they're still taking it for granted, maybe because they haven't felt it as much as the districts of Mubende and Kasanda have. You know, they feel like there is still some space and some time. So maybe people are quite adamant to heeding to the information that has been put out there. But I wouldn't really want to wish that for us. You need to be very open to all the information you can get. Good morning, Felix. How are you doing?
Morning, Philo. What a morning it is today. And it's one of those good mornings, I must say.
It is.
Do you want to know why?
Yes, I do.
But well, of course, yesterday we were amazed and mammoth by the beautiful news we got from the Grammys, you know, that one of our own, Idrissa Msuza, was nominated for the Grammys Awards, the 65th annual Grammys Awards, and definitely he will be in that category of global performance. And he does, that was on his song with Matt B, Gimme Love, a song he did a couple of months.
Your passion, Africa, your stage. The Voice Africa, connected by Airtel. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda Newsreel. It is the 16th of November 2022. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and thank you for watching UBC TV, Inspiring Uganda. Well, this morning I am joined, of course, with the two gentlemen as always, and that is Felix and Robert. This morning we are talking about a proposition, okay, that has come in from UNATU, which is the Uganda National Teachers Union. Now, they're proposing that primary schools, because for I don't remember since when, we have been having our primary education lasting for 7 years. For any normal child, for you to be considered that you have finished your primary level of education, you must have done your 7 full years, from primary 1 to primary 7, for you to be elevated to the next level of education, which is O level. But UNATU right now is suggesting, they're proposing that maybe 7 years are just not enough. They think that 8 years should be the ultimate time a child should spend in primary education. Now, they've fronted very many reasons, but one of the reasons they're fronting mainly is because they believe that right now, with the way things are happening, the world is dynamic, changes. Children are studying at quite such a young age. They believe that they don't spend enough time in primary education. And, well, I don't know how true that is, but they believe that with 8 years, giving a child an extra year in primary education, it would add some more value. It would help them mature enough for that very specific stage or level of education. So they are proposing that maybe government, through the Ministry of Education, should consider increasing the number of 8 years in primary education. Now, already there's been quite some feedback from a couple of people all over on social media and everywhere, talking about their feelings when it comes to this proposition. And we'll be looking more into this as well this morning, myself and the two gentlemen. And I know that for a fact, both of these gentlemen are quite very enthusiastic when it comes to education. We all hold it at heart. But maybe to hear from you, Robert, about this proposition, what are your feelings about it?
Well, I'll begin by giving a background to why NATO came up with this. And this is the background. People who have been in the education system remember that it was, I think, last year when Ministry of Education and Sports came up and launched what they call the Education Review Commission. Okay. Now, the work of this commission is to get various views from experts. They called upon the public from experts to look at how we must improve or make changes in our education system. And they have been consulting a number of people. Many have written to the ministry, giving in their views. It's a whole team consisting of professors, experts in the education system that are manning this. And later, they're going to come up with a report. Still Power followed the education system. We last had this during what is famously known as the Professor Sente Zakajubi paper on education. Now, this commission, when it brought out, when the Ministry of Education and Sports came out and said, now it is open, experts bring your views. And I remember hosting the PRO and Dr. Dennis Mujimba about that, inviting the public. Yes. And various stakeholders come, give in what you feel we should do to improve our education system. Because most of the times we've said our education system has issues. Now they want to have a report that will determine after getting views from stakeholders. And this being a body that unites teachers, or a union that brings teachers together in Uganda, they sat. They have had a number of consultations. And yesterday they had a press conference to tell the world what is going to be contained in their report that they're going to submit to this commission to sieve and see what they should include in the final report that is going to determine the future of the education system in Uganda. So that's why we saw them yesterday. Now, according to them, they're proposing that a child should begin school at 3 years. 3, you hit nursery. By 6, this child is entering primary 1. But also remember, in our education system, pre-primary is not a must, because there is even a clear indication that should a child clock 6 years, automatically that child will go to P1. Yes. Either they have had pre-primary or they have not had that. But they are saying that's why you see even government of Uganda doesn't have pre-primary. They don't.
It's optional, really.
It's optional, yes, by the way, though it plays a very big role, but it's optional. And even the teachers themselves of late, there's something they have begun. If you notice, now a child studies baby, and they are taken to top. Have you noticed? Many now pre-primary schools, they'll tell you nursery, middle class. There's some. If they feel the child is bright enough, and they'll just take the child to top class. So this also is, we are seeing very young people starting P1. Yeah. Yet the education calendar sought that the brain of a child to enter P1 should at least have clocked this year. Now they're saying P1, P2, P3, this is their proposal. Yes. That a child should study in their native language or in their mother tongue. That omwana asoma mu Luganda P1, P2, P3, asoma mu Lucholi, asoma whatever it is. I remember then P4, P5, P6, the child should be introduced to other languages and study more theory. Now, when you go to P7 and P8, these are vocational years. Vocational, totally. Because they say, what's the use of someone completing P7? Yet there is nothing they can show. So, we rather had them, because they believe if they began P3 in baby, then they had a middle, then they had a top, now they're joining when they are 6, so they have 7, that is you count. By the time they get to P8, one, they have matured better, but also they are able from P7, these 2 years, to concentrate on practical. And a child, and you never should examine, you have 2 certificates. The normal certificate you've been having through your theory and all that, and another certificate of how you've performed in these vocational studies. So that is what they are fronting, that these other 2 years are going to be basically practical years for a child to study. So that is what they are saying. They are going to forward to the Education Review Commission. If this is captured and taken, then that is what it's going to be. Okay.
And now, still looking at this proposition, of course, I'm pretty sure very many parents, Felix, were complaining. And from their perspective, really, the issue is that, because from what I have noticed, most parents' concern is the budget, okay, when it comes to the pockets. Already as it is, there is a couple, or there is a number, the biggest number of parents are already struggling to meet some of these costs that are incurred to educate a child all the way from primary 1 to primary 7. And even then, we already have the 3 years. It may come off as optional, the pre-primary foundation, but still right now you'd feel out of place if your child hasn't gone to all these levels. So their main issue here is now that 8th year, what is really the relevance? How, I mean, does it even, does it hold water when it comes to this? Will it change anything? Will anything be different from what our children of 7 years have been experiencing or picking from this level of education?
Well, if I'm to answer to the question you asked about relevance of the 8th year.
Yes.
Well, probably to them who suggested it, it has relevancy. But measuring up to the whole idea that is being fronted about such adjustments, you will find that there is, if what Robert has been explaining is what it is, there's a lot of confusion. And that's why I said, from what, if that's what it is,
yeah,
that
if
kind
that is
of
their
confusion,
school of thought, this
yes,
is where they're coming from.
That kind of confusion does not represent the kind of education we have been talking about. First and foremost, you talk about having 2 years of teaching people in their local languages.
Yes.
Now, you're going to have, I don't even know how many teachers that, are you going to do this regionally? That people in the Acholi region study in Acholi, because in Acholi they are also Uganda, they have a guess, they have a to. How are you doing this? When you come to Uganda, my little one is being taught Luganda, but she's not a Muganda. Is it relevant to them? So are we teaching language according to regions? Are you going to say in Busoga?
Should the children get back to their regions?
I believe that experts argue that children better understand what they're taught in their mother.
And what I'm saying, that's not for me what I'm contesting. I think if you want to be being on the same page, the issue is this. Are you going to have a teacher teaching science in Luganda come in for 2 minutes, then actually, because the class has 67 tribes of children? Are we going to take it a blanket by saying that all people in Buganda will study Luganda, but are all people in schools in Baganda? So when you talk about teaching in local languages, are you going to have interpreters as Kirabo is teaching science, parts of a cockroach, then someone is saying maybe in a talk back to the kids, ebitundu by'ekiyenje, or is saying in Runyankole someone is saying ebyebikere. What is this?
Actually, Felix, this is not a new thing that they proposed. Ministry of Education and Sports, I think, launched this about 6 years back, apart from Central here, but in some parts of this country, this was piloted and it's ongoing already.
But I don't think also you're understanding my issue, Bob.
What we are saying,
I want to reassert
I think the issue is the system
and
of
how. I think you should have
that.
asked me, how is it happening? That would have been
okay. So how is it happening?
So what they are doing, apart from communities like in the Central, where they believe there's so much of mixed of races, I mean of tribes, there they're using English. But when you go to parts of Eastern, where they believe these are rural setting schools, yes, there could be those that are unfortunate that they are in these communities and they are being taught a language that is not their mother tongue. But when you go to parts of North, when you go to Eastern, this is a project that has been ongoing and has been workable.
Anyway, that the good thing that is your thought. But in my opinion, I will avert what your school of thought is, and I think this is one of the most very hard to implement, as I've told you. Some people leave Buganda to go and study in Mbarara. Baganda, we have very many of them. We have people from Mbarara who are studying in Gulu because probably their parents work. So that's what I'm asking. When you talk about teaching in their mother tongues, you can't say that can be based on regions. The good thing you keep on saying, belief, they believe, they believe, they believe. We can't base academic standards on beliefs. We must have some sort of accuracy. And for me, that I think already is a disguise. Because up till today, Uganda has only conceded to accept a general language next to English, being Swahili. If the argument was tabled about Swahili, say that we are going to teach for the first 2 years Swahili because it's acceptable,
yes,
and later on also juggling into the East African community, that would make sense. But between you and me, what is the relevance of teaching? And with due respect, by the way, with due respect, I'm not attacking languages or local languages, but what do you trade? Let's say from, I don't want to speak a particular language, but let's say from your local language, how do you trade that internationally? Let's say if you're talking about the concept of East Africa, what is the relevance of speaking, let's say Uganda, or teaching someone Luganda to make it a first language for them, but yet elsewhere it is not what is appreciated. It is good to know Luganda as matters of basis of culture or tradition and what. But when you say you want to teach it, what is the relevance? Secondly, after teaching them, are you going to examine them in these local languages? Are you going to see papers in Acholi for one class? There's an Acholi, there's a Lugba, there's a Mswahili, you're going to set all this. It's literally not practical. I don't find it's a joke.
Yes.
Secondly, you're talking about this extension of years. Are 2 years? That's why I said in the start, if it is what Robert has been explaining,
yes,
probably it could be different, but I'm picking from his preamble. When you come to this segmentation of studies, at 2 years you're going to teach this, then later on we shall, after probably 5 years, after 5 years, then we start teaching them technical work for 2 years.
Yes.
Now, the question is, actually, even before I ask the question, look around us, other countries, what are they doing? Go to Kenya. They're actually doing 6 years.
Kenya, I think also Rwanda, they're doing
is
6 years, yes.
I think it is only Tanzania which is doing 7 years like us. But elsewhere it's different. But the rationale of that is that this is what we call formation study. Primary school is formation study, formation. Now, which means that this kind of education will inform what someone can study to make an art of life or a skill of life. Now, with this confusion that is segmented from confusion of language to confusion of, then what is the basis? Let's imagine someone is going to move on to secondary school. Probably, this should be put as an option.
That whoever wants to go through the 8 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
It should put because what about people who are not intending to stop at that level? And they're intending to go with that confusion.
Still there is continuity, because when you look at the lower secondary curriculum, it is also much more of a practical and a bit of vocational.
As I said,
recently
the primary,
by
the purpose of primary education is formation. It gives you direction.
Yes.
Whether you want to do a science or you want to do, and no wonder at S1 it is easier for you to pick where your strength is because of the formation. That's why it had the core subjects then, like mathematics, English, social studies, and science. Most recently we have literacy, IC, languages, Swahili, and what. But initially that was the purpose, that when you do these 4 units, they are the cores of any formation, whether you want to do an arts course,
yes, or
study, or to do a science. But now with this diffusion and dissolving of what you want to bring in, language, what you want to, and can't we do these vocational studies along the studies?
Yeah, because the thought here is that for that one last year, it could be a little bit more practical, but that is versus.
But we can do it alongside the study.
It in the 7 years.
Yes.
Yes.
As someone starts P1, let them know about something called woodwork. Maybe theoretically. As they progress to P2, P3, let them touch the machines. Let them know how a carpenter, how to join a table. Because by in 7 years, a child of about probably 11, 12,
Yes,
7,
yes, 12 years.
takes to make a chair like this one. That's not rocket science. But when you think you're going to wait at the end, and then the distortion is already being made.
Yes.
So I think maybe the intentions are good. As I said, maybe we have not understood well because they have not come out to break it down further or to have a study. But if this is what it looks like, I think there's a bit of confusion. And I can tell you and predict by now that that won't pass. That won't pass. Because the idea of elongating studies is not a solution. It's not a solution. But the content therein is the solution.
Yes.
Even if you say you are studying for 10 years in primary, but the content is not sellable, it doesn't solve the problem, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, I don't know whether, Robert, you beg to differ, especially on that bit of where you could do this alongside, because Felix here believes that, I mean, even that aside, what is happening right now, ideally, originally, we were only having 4 subjects, but there are very many other, you know, some other subjects that have been involved in there, but when it comes to P7, obviously you're going to only see it 4. But does it really require 1 year to have all these extra vocational skills? Do we think that they are actually heavy and they require enough time that we cannot pick from what's already going on right now in the 7 years? Are they that heavy really at that level of primary?
First, before I come to that, I think I want to just highlight it more when we talk about the term is language commonly spoken in that particular vicinity. That Ministry of Education and Sports saw it that when a child is growing up, in the early stages of growing up, these children can easily learn languages. That's why you'll find that a child can speak Kiswahili, can speak English, can speak Luganda, and any other language. So they thought that in this community where they stay, if they are teaching that commonly spoken language and they are learning in that language, it will help them better understand things and interpret them. So that's why they chose that path. But where I want to slightly differ from my brother Felix, when he talks about teaching these along other subjects, one, certain things seem very simple until you get to look at them and or venture into them. For example, one would say that woodwork or metalwork. I remember I did metalwork senior 1, senior 2, senior 3. Because of the school I went to, you either had to choose woodwork, metalwork, home economics, and a few other basics. But when you look at the mind of a child and different stages to development, how you're introducing them, when they look at these other 2 years, saying, now we think these children are mature enough to bring them into these practical subjects. For example, if you're talking about P1, making a chair, maybe there you may introduce a child to what is wood and all that. But
the basics.
The basics, but ability to say, this is a hammer, this is a lander, this is this, this is this. Certain things come with growth. I've ever gone for a certain job interview, and one of the requirements, it was even an international organization. They wanted a person, a particular age, and a married person, officially married. So I came out and said, no, this is discriminatory. How do you say, we have academic qualifications, we have them, then you put these things, age, then you put marriage. So after I questioned someone, told me certain things, certain responsibilities come with age and maturity. So certain practical subjects, some require energy, some require you being very conscious of the equipment you're handling, and these may come with a particular age. Because we are fed up of burdening our children with so much. Some even have back pains now because they have a bag that is carrying so many books, so much. P7, you may think this person is going for war between Russia and Ukraine because they look so armored for battle. Yet they are carrying pamphlets, textbooks. So instead of adding more along, when they propose, let's have these 2 years to cater into this more. And also identify how we exploit other things that we look at as co-curriculums. How do we include them and find direction for this child for these 2 years? For me, I would welcome that. However, my only challenge would be, are we going to are we prepared for that if this Ministry of Education takes up this? Because this is going to require equipment. Today, many schools don't have the equipment. This is going to require workshops. Some schools are in 2-3 blocks. They don't have that space. Even the recent new curriculum, the revised curriculum for lower secondary, why some schools are failing, teachers don't even understand what to do, but also what they require is not available. So for me, I'm looking at the practicability. How are we going to be able to ensure that this is put in place? Because we must believe there are many are lucky, many are unfortunate, that when a person drops out, Felix has said this is a formational stage, good, I have no doubt about that.
Yes.
But you must also look at 7 years in school, and someone, in case of uncertainty, cannot be employed, can almost do nothing on their own. If this person progresses to secondary, this curriculum is more of a rejoinder that you kind of move ahead with what you are earlier initiated into, which is practical and coming up with something. So for me, I believe, yes, we may not be able to add more burden into the education system from P1, saying now we have, maybe we initiate you to metalwork, woodwork, home economics and all this. But if you have these 2 years of specific focus on this, and they're examinable, to me, I'll take that rather than adding again more this and that, more burden and over. However, practicability is what I'm looking at.
Well, the discussion this morning is in concernment with the 8 years of primary schooling, a proposition that has been put on the table by UNATU. It hasn't yet been passed or anything. It's just a proposition they think would come in handy. Now, is this move to extend primary schooling years necessary? That is the question. Get onto our socials and let us know. Give us your 2 cents on that. And I do have feedback coming in here from one of the viewers saying, good morning. Why is the government wanting students to spend more in school, yet the current curriculum is not yielding? We need more of hand-on skills than reading what he considers irrelevant things. But also there was a suggestion here that somebody was saying maybe they need to cut down on some of the years that we currently have, and they can instill what they would want us to have in the last year, primary 8, and fix it in one of these years. You know how we are having like 7 years, maybe we could just use 2 or 1 of those years to get into the practical bit, basically to cut down on the increase when it comes to the number of years in primary. I don't know, Felix, what do you think about that? Maybe P7 should be the year for the practical work as opposed to adding an extra year.
Some of these officials just enjoy surplus, always. Surplus, they go for money, supplementary budget.
The supplementary budget, yes.
But their minds are locked in supplement all the time. But, and Robert here was talking about here, when someone, by then they finish P8, they are employed. Who employs a 14-year-old?
Haven't you seen them employed in a number of...
Where? Is it legal?
That is legal.
We are talking about the legal.
Employing a 14-year-old.
Then don't tell me about the illegal. I'm talking about the legal. And where are you going to employ a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old?
Felix.
The relevance of skills, these are life skills. That's why I target to something called formation. It should help with direction, home economics, that skills of survival, not employment. That's what you're talking about. Skills of survival
in one or the other. We've seen,
and this is the confusion, that when you teach a child things like woodwork, these are skills of survival. When you teach them how gardening works, agriculture, metal, we are not preparing our children for work. Not that we are going to get qualifications, interviews. No. We are giving them life skills, as I call it, skills of survival. So if they are not able probably to go on, probably with money, they can survive in the communities. Actually, I would want to hear discussions of children that should be taught these things of saying 8 years. And I don't know, as I said, these people think a lot in surplus than working with what they have. If you want to first evaluate what you're teaching them right now in these 7 years. You evaluate, and it's unfortunate. We shall look at the syllabus here one day. You will be surprised. You're talking about language. That's a confusing thing. You're not going to get a Munyoro child start teaching them Acholi because they're studying in Acholi. Now it's like you're punishing them for studying in that region.
Yes.
They don't become Acholis because they study in Acholi. So there's no use of teaching them Acholi because they are. Let us
the
focus
locality
on life
because
skills.
of the locality.
Skills of survival. That how do these kids, as I talk, this is a formation stage, how do our children live in communities relevantly? You see, the expectation we are putting on primary school is too much. You don't expect that someone at 14 is going to come out and do miracles in the world. But let us teach them life skills.
We're talking of
living
children
together.
in other developed countries that are doing things.
Uganda is not. So you know your levels.
You're talking
Uganda
about
is
that
not.
are developing. And
They have what they need. You hardly have classes. You're the one who has said. Those kids have theaters. They have laboratories. You don't.
They do have the resources
So,
to back
dreaming.
up the systems that
Stop
they're introducing.
dreaming. How many teachers at primary level can teach Rugisu? Or you're just picking someone in community because I get a new Rugisu.
Well,
Let's be honest. At the university level,
yes.
How many universities here teach Ruchiga? At a teaching level. Is it you tell me one that you know?
But well,
so who's going to
this
teach
is not
Ruchiga to
at
this
university level?
Or teach science in Ruchiga?
This is not
Well, the
university
conversation
No,
is
because
still
I'm saying
going
the
on
teachers
onto
have to
our
have
socials.
been taught to teach that.
You can send your message on our WhatsApp number 0709-602-592. What are your thoughts? What is the practicality of this proposition? Will it yield any results? Is it something that we should look into? Or maybe we are still steps away from getting there. Maybe we need to prioritize some things to make sure that if we really need this, it should be able to find us on a fertile ground that will facilitate it. And I'm talking about this proposition. Get it to our sisters. Let us know what you think about this. But for now, we're going in for a break. When we get back, we'll be looking into our dailies for the big stories.
A logical, deeper conversation.
How many teachers in Uganda did you consult? But there's a mistake we are making.
Which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
We went to this school, we ran it to Western, we ran it to Northern, we ran, then you come.
Isn't that an achievement?
Objective and non-partisan.
Honorable Minister, there were a number of points. I want to start with you.
Straight from the hearts of open-minded men and women.
Money tends to move faster at night. So when people are not counting,
Don't take it for granted.
Candid and authentic.
Because Uganda is not Thailand.
That's not correct, and we should stop that kind of mentality. So what I'm saying
That's
is,
a trick question. Don't answer.
I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into that.
Tell him you speak low.
I think that's where we are beginning to have a problem.
I think what is going to kill the parish model are all the misconceptions on how it's supposed to run.
I know that the Prime Minister is listening.
Behind the headlines.
Charles, let us agree. We liberalized the economy.
We are several nations put it together.
Why don't you appreciate that?
What if it fails?
I'm happy
And
to
he's
answer.
a good lawyer because Amin is not in power.
The parish development committee is functional. It is there. That there is a parish chief, that the beneficiaries do exist.
So we look at expenditure. We don't look at revenue. And that is the challenge we are giving them from Minister of Finance.
Your fountain of new knowledge, flowing into the mass body of knowledge.
First get the knowledge of Bukedia, how they want to be modernized.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
you return money to the treasury, which is meant for the people.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone, the most affordable smartphone in Uganda. You get to enjoy free 1 GB for 1 whole year. My Airtel 4G smartphone, your best value for money. Visit the nearest Airtel outlet today and get one at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, in the press review this morning, starting off with the Daily Monitor, court sets new rules for marital property, and they're giving you quite a breakdown. 50% has been quashed. Now, marriage does not give a spouse an automatic half share in the matrimonial property. Now, that and many more breakdowns. You need to get yourself a copy today and see what you are entitled to as a married person. And also looking at more stories, Ebola Museveni restricts movement of trucks carrying logs in the respective districts, and about 236 million Uganda shillings spent on accident victims every day. Now, 400 newborns die in Uganda weekly, and also looking at school warned over curriculum. And onto the second page of the Daily Monitor, still giving you a more detailed story of President addressing the nation yesterday and what he had to say about the movement of log trucks in Mubende and Kasanda. Taking you back in history, Museveni elected as a UPM party leader back in 1980 on the same day. Now, what was this party all about? Well, more reason for you to grab yourself a copy. And still taking you back in 1961, President Kennedy increases military aid to South Vietnam.
So on to the new vision for today. The presidential address, Ebola contacts barred from leaving the country. That is a detailed story on page 3. But they also give you a big headline right there. Spouses' rights on matrimonial property revised. Court gives a woman 20% in landmark verdict. That is pages 6 and 7. And also they give you more on security clears the Embotu Kizit. They'll also give you a picture right there during that kind of commemoration. But also in the new vision for today, FIFA wants a ceasefire for Ukraine to watch World Cup. That is a detailed story on page 39. And more of the stories crossing over to the second page. Government considers new tax policies for manufacturers, and of course with more job opportunities right there in today's new vision.
Daily Monitor Sports section, Lionel Messi wants to ignore hype. And in the last dance, of course, the 35-year-old has done it all at the club level as he approaches his final lap. There is everything to play for. And looking at the official days to go for the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022, only 4 days. And they're also giving you quite a breakdown of that in the Daily Monitor Sports. And also looking at Hugo, Laurie says there is too much pressure on players to protest in Qatar. Still in regards to FIFA World Cup 2022, it's going to be happening in Qatar a few days from now.
And in the New Vision Sports, why is Qatar a controversial location? Well, more on the decision to award Qatar hosting rights for the 2022 World Cup has been, hit by controversy about corruption, allegations for welfare, a lot of stuff in there. But we have 4 days to kick off. And of course, you can expect to have the World Cup games here on UBC. They also give you more of the Vision Group offers shillings 150 million. And of course, that is towards the MTN Uganda marathon as well. They give you more on the details as the marathon comes up on Sunday as well. Now, more on the FIFA World Cup 2022 Qatar special. They give you more of the, the table, who you can expect at World Cup, and of course how nations are preparing for that.
Daily Nation, man who owes Kenya 40 billion Kenyan shillings. My, oh my. Well, it traces back to 1993. Imagine owing a country all that money. It's crazy. So Cyrus Jirongo was one of the most powerful people in the country. He went to Postbank Credit as state-owned lender and borrowed a whooping 2.7 billion Kenyan shillings. And this is equivalent to Kenya's budget deficit at the time. Now, you can get get this full story and what's the way forward for him, giving you a fact file for him. And also a special report in this paper, a stranger than fiction tale of how former youth for KANU chairman obtained these loans. And security shake-up as crime soars. Clearly Nairobi and Kenya in general are also really faced with these in these times, which has also become quite a big problem when it comes to insecurity talk. And elections, 4 petitions for the removal of IEBC 4, and looking at the permanent secretary interviews, court holds vetting of Ruto's permanent secretary nominees. Why did this happen? Who is also involved in all this? You can get the full story in the Daily Nation. And also talking about the budget, money talk, and Treasury aligning mini budget to Ruto's cuts. You can also get that full story in the Daily Nation this morning. So grab yourself copies of the Daily Monitor, grab yourself copies of the a copy of the New Vision, but also you can get yourself a copy of the Daily Nation to catch up on that and many more. But in regards to our very topic of discussion in the newsroom, well, we're talking about the practicality of this proposition to increase primary years to 8 from the initial 7 years. We do have already feedback coming in here from our beautiful viewers. This is Salim from Palisa, and you're saying that I don't agree with this proposal because it's never supported in Uganda. I'm a science secondary teacher currently teaching a new curriculum which we thought is going to be learner-centered, but rather the burden is put back to teachers. And you should remember that teachers nowadays are teaching for money, but not to instill anything to learners. So I don't agree with this. And clearly he's saying that he agrees with what Felix was saying. Let them be brought from P1. So these extra activities should be brought alongside the normal curriculum. Thank you so much, Salim. And also coming in from you, Aleppo Moses from Moroto, you're saying thank you for the discussion. As per primary education, it's very important to teach children from P1 to P3 using local language because it's a step for young ones to identify and differentiate vocabularies using mother tongue and English for better understanding. Okay, coming in from you, Council Muhwezi Baker, you're saying this system of 8 years won't work because at first, UNATU has failed to secure respect for primary teachers and the salary they get. This will end up chasing and discouraging people from teaching. Thank you so much for that school of thought as well. Well, continue letting us know what you think about that. Get into our the hashtag is UBCGMU. You can also use our WhatsApp number to let us know your general thoughts. Give us your 2 cents. We'll be sharing them with the rest of our Good Morning Uganda viewers on UBC TV this morning. But also I'm going to divert you to the traffic this morning and looking at areas of Nigeria, looking at areas of Chira, looking at areas of Namgongo, Ntinda, Naguru, Chisasi this morning. I could say that it's quite a busy one, especially on most of these roads. And taking it all the way from Chira town headed towards Chira, well, I could say it's still a bit of a smooth ride, as quite evidential over here as you're moving. The most of the stretches there still seen in green, but you'll be expecting traffic as you get closer and closer to Chiwatule and also areas of Nalia. Matter of fact, we already see traffic building up over here, and it's quite very intense, not the kind that you'll probably be joking around with, and clearly it is segmented again on this very specific road, so you will have to be very ready for that. And also looking at areas of Nalia as I speak right now, all the way from the Catholic Shrine Basilica, it's already very busy over here. We're having all these dots in red, looking at also traffic buildups in some of these areas as you're headed towards Chireka and Banda respectively. Looking at areas of Chiwatule again, over here their traffic is already building in. Looking at the areas of Seboa, it's not any different from coming in all the way from Chiwatule police station. So the traffic here is already heavy. Kindly make an informed decision as you're leaving, or if you're already on it, in it, you could have to be very patient. And looking at areas of Ntinda, Magamba Road is very busy this morning. Areas around Chigowa, you'll be expecting some heavy traffic over there. And for the biggest part of Ntinda 2 Road, again, we're already witnessing traffic over here in these respective spots. And as you're getting closer to Naguru as well, the traffic intensifies. The red is dominating most stretches of these roads, and the oranges as well, clearly showing that the traffic is building up over there. So for the rest of that side, I could say that the traffic is actually quite heavier. Katalima Road is not any different. Ntinda Road is not any different as you're accessing Nakawa, which also again is quite heavy on the traffic this morning. Please be careful on the road. We already have the crackdown that is happening. It's not only for the borders, but even you, the motorists, you need to be very alert and vigilant on the roads. We need to work together to make sure that we work on this road carnage issue. It has become a subject of emergency being discussed in Parliament, and also making sure that you as a community, you are safe from these accidents. Some of them are actually self-caused. Well, that's it from the traffic updates this morning, and I now leave you to Mollen to give you more from the weather and climate arena and give us more updates on COP27. Mollen, what is happening?
Well, what is happening right now is we are actually concluding almost the final week of COP27, and at this point we're looking at more of the ministers, that is the environmental ministers from different nations that have come together to table what their countries are prepared to do in terms of climate action, but also looking at more what could come through as a major decision for all countries that are party to COP, to make sure that they are making a decision, especially to limit global warming and of course cutting their emissions. And Philomena, I can tell you it has been quite a busy week, looking at the expertise coming through, but also the commitments from the side of governments, because the ministers that are there are representing their governments, and of course what they are forwarding is what countries are prepared to do. And now you look at developed countries and Uganda involved. Are we able to measure up in terms of technology that COP27 is advising? We need more technology, advancing it to meet our climate action goals.
Well, clearly we still have a long way to go, but it's never too late to start on a journey like that. I will leave you now to Mollen to give you more on that, and probably giving the weather forecast. We did wake up to some heavy showers. I actually had not noticed that it rained until I saw the roads soaked in the rains. Well, I will leave it at that. I am Philomena Mastiko. Have a very beautiful and productive Wednesday. Good morning.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. Now, you talked about the weather for this morning. Yes, we did start off with a little bit of rains across several places within the country, and looks like that system is still there for most areas, and of course some of the areas that will also be getting rains this morning. But we will be diving into your forecast a little bit later on. First, we look at what is happening, and of course we're still talking about extreme weather events as well. Now, there has been a prolonged drought across East Africa that has been stretching on for months and months, and now has also been crossing the threshold for a drought crisis over East Africa. Now, it is on that level that now scientists have come up to say they now have to assess the famine situation as well that could be resulting from this extended drought crisis. Now, donors must act now to save East Africa from famine, according to the IRC. Now, you look at the famine early warning system network in Africa, which scientists are saying that this needs to be examined more, especially looking at areas of Kenya where they have taken as a case study. And of course, they need to now provide more cash to save lives and not wait for famine to be declared in parts of East Africa where tons of millions of people are going hungry. And of course, looking at this organization that is the International Rescue Committee, while they were talking in a press conference yesterday, they did also talk about the fact that this could be stretching to other countries within East Africa, especially with regards to famine and of course people going hungry. We're already seeing that across Somalia and parts of Ethiopia, where there has already been a famine cases, and of course food insecurity for much of East Africa, resulting from the extended drought scenario. And of course now the donors are saying, well, we know that there is need for more money, but also it stretches to say that this has all been an effect of climate change. The weather is changing. That means that we have longer dry days, we have little rains. So that puts a target on the ambitions that are being made even right now at COP27. How do we address some of these issues, because they are still affecting us? Now the good news is that while this seems to be a problem in East Africa, it's not just East Africa. We're looking at more of the countries that are also being faced with famine. And which is why even right now, as we talk about COP, most of the commitments that are coming through are also addressing some of those issues. Now, also what came out from yesterday's sessions at COP, they're looking at nature, how to preserve nature. And of course, that is one of the key aspects coming in from the Egyptians as the host country, but also the COP27 presidency. And what they're saying is that now developing countries and of course the developed countries have to come together to see how they minimize also loss in terms of nature. Now we know that there are some species that are already on the verge of extinction, and of course they did bring out some of the animals, like the monkeys, like most of the polar bear, which has already been on the verge of extinction and is likely to extinct due to climate change extremes. And they're looking at how we can now save some of these parts of nature. Now we do know that also we've had rise in coral reefs that have affected the marine life. So we could be looking at more species in terms of fish that could also be getting extinct because of climate extremes. And of course, they're also concerned. They're saying governments should be considering more ambitious actions on how to preserve most of these things and of course keep nature alive and intact. Now also what came out from COP yesterday is that we did get more proposals and coming in from most governments that have made commitments in terms of cutting their emissions. Now one of these from Turkey, that's the environmental minister for Turkey, of course, as he was speaking on what they have addressed as a country. Now it is a big move for Turkey. They're raising greenhouse gas emission reduction targets for 2030, and of course they have put it at 50%, and for now they're looking at emissions at 41% by 2030. Now that has also raised their target, because before they had 21%, and that was from last COP, that is COP26. They are the first country to actually move this fast in terms of raising their percentage in committing to cutting greenhouse gas emission. Now this is still what is coming in from COP, but also more of what is coming through is that we're seeing more partnerships and more initiatives that have been developed across COP. And of course, one of those, we're looking at the ones that developing countries will be benefiting from. We did see yesterday the COP27 presidency coming up to announce that they will also be making 4 pillars of the initiative that is in regard to keeping peace and sustainability, and also conflict and climate change. Now they did mention that these will be addressed in 4 pillars. We're talking about the initiative that will be implemented across the climate adaptation and peace building nexus. That will be looking more into how do we create an environment where it is sustainable, there is peace, but also we are adapting to the changing climate. Those are some of the issues that are being addressed in the first pillar of this initiative that was launched. We're also looking at the resilient food system, climate displacement nexus. Now in this nexus, they're looking at more of the people that are being displaced from their homes, and of course how that can be addressed is also something to look at. They're talking more about the accelerating climate finance, and of course building sustainable peace. We're looking more into what could be happening with that nexus, and of course majorly about finance. Now what is coming in from COP with finance is that they're looking at how countries can also beef up their targets in terms of looking at loss and damage. Now it has been clear from the presidency right from the get-go that they are looking at this COP as an implementation one, meaning that all the decisions that are being made right now are going to have to pave way for what is going to happen within the next 5 years. They've also laid out strategies for the 5-year plan, what could be done, and we do hope that even by next COP, most of these will be addressed. Countries are making commitments, giving timelines on what they are willing to do in terms of cutting emissions, in terms of going more green, investing more in renewable energy, and that is something that we can take from that. But at the end of the week, we do expect that ministers will be tabling what so far their countries have agreed upon in terms of cutting greenhouse gas emissions. Well, away from that, we also want to take a look at what is happening back here at home, and of course we'll be tapping in from our satellites, looking at what the weather is like over the country. We started off with those rains across the Lake Victoria Basin. Now we did see most of that system also stretching towards parts of southwestern Uganda, and of course much of the central part of the country, where we did start off with a little bit of rains, but it looks like that will be also moving in towards much of this morning. Now we also have another rainy system that is developing across midwestern Uganda, taking in areas of Masindi, Hoima. As we speak, we do have rains over there. We also have rains that are extending towards the northwestern part of the country, and that is where we're seeing those green and dark blue colors right there, orange as well. That is where we do expect to have those rains also to continue for this morning. Now that system stretches a little bit towards central northern Uganda, where we have Gulu, Kitgum. We're looking at more rains for you this morning, and also parts of eastern Uganda. Amuria right now as we speak, mostly cloudy over there. Also looking at the Karamoja region, starting off with intervals of cloudy and sunny conditions. And we could also be looking at a little bit of rains coming through for the Karamoja region. That will be extending towards eastern Uganda. Much more of that rainy system is actually stretching towards central, so we'll be dealing with more of those rains even right now as we speak, still across Hoima, Masindi, extending to Kasese, Fort Portal. You can expect to have those rains for this morning. We'll go ahead and take a look at the forecast that is coming in from Uganda National Meteorological Authority. Also look at what temperatures we're expecting for much of today, and where we can actually expect a continuation of those rainy conditions. Starting off with the central part of northern Uganda, where we have Jumani, Gulu, Padel, as well as Kitgum. We are forecasting isolated showers. We already have rains in the area. Those will be across several places, starting off at 127. The western part of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe, and Rakai. We're forecasting rains as well, and we're looking at the Chile 25. That system will also continue into the afternoon. Now we look at southwestern Uganda, where we have Mbara, Ivan, Bushenyi, and Rubirizi. We're forecasting light rains. Those will be across several places, starting off with quite a cool morning for you at 23 degrees centigrade. Mount Elgon Highlands, where we have Mbale, Bududa, Buko, and Sironko, we're forecasting isolated showers. Those will be coming in as we head into the afternoon, and of course that system will also stick around for the afternoon. But for this morning, we're starting off quite chilly at 24 degrees centigrade. Now we look at the eastern parts of Uganda, where we have Soroti, Katakwi, Amuria, and Kumi. We're forecasting isolated showers as well. That will be across several places, starting off with a chilly 25 degrees centigrade, but some of those rains are expected to clear as we head into the afternoon, where we'll have mostly sunny intervals. The eastern part of central, we have Nakaseke, we have Bururi, Woblenzi, Luero, Nakasongola in that category as well. We are forecasting isolated showers. Those will be across several places. We already have that huge system headed your way. Do expect those rains for this morning. It will be starting off at chilly 25 degrees centigrade. Also, we might expect a repeat of those rains later in the afternoon. Now, the central part of Lake Victoria Basin, we do have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso. We still have those rains in the forecast. We started off with most of those across most areas, and looks like that system continues, starting off with a chilly 24 degrees centigrade. Also, we do expect those rains to cross over into the afternoon, and that will be across several places. within the Lake Victoria Basin. Now, we do expect mostly the southern sector today to continue with rainy conditions and, of course, with temperatures being low as well. The western stretch also continues with rainy conditions, and also that will be crossing over into the afternoon. Much of central northern Uganda, as well as the Lake Kyoga region, we also do expect a continuation of rains. However, we might also continue with sunny intervals across the Karamoja region, as well as eastern Uganda later in the afternoon, where temperatures seem to be a bit warmer over there. And of course, for this time of the year, that is within the normal range, but do prepare for that kind of weather. Now, that is it in terms of weather updates for this morning. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a wonderful morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Every language has weather-related expressions. Two common weather conditions are rainy and sunny.
Jonathan, are you coming to my lawn care party? We need to mow the lawn, pull the weeds, and cut down a dead tree.
Of course, I will be there.
You know, you also said you were coming to my paint my kitchen party, and you didn't.
This time I will. Come rain or shine, I will be at your place Saturday morning.
Come rain or shine means something will happen no matter what. It's a promise. You can even use the phrase when talking about the actual weather. So if you invite people to an outdoor party, you can tell them it will happen come rain or shine. And that's English in a Minute.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100 066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, and thank you so much for keeping it on UBC TV. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. In this segment, just a reminder, in case this is your first time or you're an ardent viewer of us now, in this segment, what we do is we have a guest in studios and you're able to ask questions, giving your contribution on that number on your screen. That is our WhatsApp number, where you're also able to send us a text message, the ordinary traditional SMS. Even if you don't have a smartphone or you don't have data but you have airtime, you can still send us, and I'll be reading them out to our guest in studio, and I guarantee you they'll be responding, or he usually or she responds to the questions. Now, once again, I'm Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono, and indeed I must remind you that we are here every weekday from 6:30 till the hour of 9, where we make sure we give you information that you need to know on pertinent issues that are affecting our society. This morning, I have something that I really feel is of national concern, and I believe by the end of the show, you'll have some, at least some information and relief, maybe. Now, we are going to be discussing issues of the economy, and that is, we want to look at the effects of COVID-19 on the banking sector and managing bank loans. As we talk today, after COVID-19, many people went for loans because it was one of the ways to revive their businesses, or some were struggling. And now what is happening, many people, we are seeing a number of properties being sold because people have failed to pay or service these loans. Recently, one of the dailies in this country brought out a number of business property, company property that is on auction, or that has been taken by the banks because they have failed people to pay. Now, joining me this morning, I have Jonah Waiswa, who happens to be the head of Public Education Awareness, Bank of Uganda. Now, Bank of Uganda is a central bank and does a bit of regulating other banks, most of the commercial banks. Waiswa, happy to have you again. Good morning.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Brings you back here.
Good morning to you.
Then no matter no moving, go on.
Let me begin by asking, how is money? You know, you people, we believe you see money, so how is money?
Money is scarce by nature. Money is supposed to be, we all every day fight to get money. Money must be hard to fake.
Oh.
It must be something that is not easy to easily fake, so that whatever is printed by the authority is respected. But most importantly, money must be always scarce. That's why we wake up every day to look for it.
So is our money safe at such a time?
It is very safe. If you doubt its safety, you just pass at the Bank of Uganda gate and try to be as if you're sneaking into. You confirm that it's actually safe at the Bank.
Oh, I see these billion vans and I wave. And
don't even try it at home. Don't try to wave. Don't try to wave at home.
Because just look at them and say, that is our money going.
And that's it. I like it when you say that's our money going. Indeed, it's your money. It's your money. So as you're working hard and trying to put your money in savings into the bank, just know we are doing a good job to protect your deposits in the financial institutions, and continue working and saving. We shall continue doing our job of protecting your deposits wherever they are in the bank. You sleep safely.
Now, during COVID-19, when the economy just opened, Bank of Uganda came up with a number of relief measures that were aimed at helping the public recover, helping the public, stabilized. These are people in business. But as we speak, Waisra, we see a number of people are choking on loans. We are seeing properties taken. First, let's begin by looking at some of these relief measures that you had put in place.
When we had COVID, of course, the president came up and instituted a lockdown for our safety, healthy safety. What did that mean? There are people who had taken loans way before COVID. And they took loans based on the conditions prevailing at that time. There was no lockdown. Business was moving on slow, well. They were going on with business very well. And they were earning, getting revenue, profits, and then they were able to pay back in the banks. Now here COVID comes and we go into lockdown. That meant that the businesses, some of them were brought their knees, and some of them of course closed, but those that remained surviving, it meant that they were not able to sell as they were selling. That means they were incapacitated to pay normally their installments that were due. But also to note is that some businesses also were completely closed, that they were not able even to get any little returns, so that they are able to pay back into their banks. So as the Bank of Uganda, who regulates the finance sector, the banking sector, we came up with the credit relief measures. And these measures were aimed at two main objectives. One, how do we create, like the word is, relief? How do you give the borrower relief who borrowed during a good situation and now the situation is tight, they have been locked, they can't do business? How do we ensure that they can pay back their loans without without taking their property? I can say maybe that. But number two, how do you also support the lender to reduce the risk? Because the lender also lent in an environment which was good, that they were anticipating that the borrowers would pay back. But now that the economy is locked, they were not able, there was a risk of them not recovering that money. So again, we also had that aspect of how do we help the lender to recover or to overcome the risk of default by the borrower, and because of the unforeseen circumstances of COVID. So those are the two objectives. The borrower, how do you get relief and pay either little, or continue paying, or pause the payment, and then your installments are extended in a future time, so that your payment period is extended and you are able to pay later when the lockdown is gone. So that was the intention of the credit relief. Two front. Support the borrowers, but also support the lenders. Because we need to understand how the banking sector works, or how the business of banking works. Literally, banking or banking business is business of money. What does it mean? Just like we also go and you can buy rice at a higher price, at a lower price. People come to Kampala, buy things at a lower price in bulk, then they go in wholesale, then they go to their respective places, they sell at a higher price, and they benefit from, they get a profit on top. Banking is the same thing. It is a trade of money. They trade in money. So there are people who are lending to banks. The banks create loans, and they also do forward lending to you who want to do business. So who are the lenders to the banks? When you fixed money in your bank, which you call the fixed deposit, you're lending money to the bank at a lower interest rate. So the bank will say, give me at the only problem is that sometimes we don't take money to the bank, we just go and dump it there.
Yes.
And that's
I have money on my account, and that is all.
That's the issue. So the Bible says in Uganda, alina alyongerwako.
Atana nakatono kali mujirwako.
Gochogede bulungi. So you people we have money, but because of ignorance, I would say so, you just dump the money in the bank and leave it there. I am saving. So the money grows, I am saving. That money, ideally, that's trade. You also must lend the money to the bank. So the bank also creates loans and lends to others, and then they benefit from the interest difference. So don't leave your money in the bank, just dump it there. Go and negotiate with the banks. I am depositing the money here for this period of time, maybe 2 years, or 1 year, or 6 months, and then tell them, how much are you giving me? Even over tea, maybe. These banks have the executive suites. Over tea. They tell you, we are giving you 8%. So no, the CBR is now high. You see, you're crying of CBR, but there is also where you can benefit from CBR through the...
Because the CBR, if I remember very well, it was at 9% in August. That was last year. Then you increased the CBR now to 10%.
Now, you the lender who is lending to the bank, who is fixing your money in the bank, it's your time to benefit also.
So I should know that by October, the central bank increased the CBR.
And now when you go to fix this money in the bank, you also bargain accordingly. You say you can't give me 9% when the bank rate is that, so increase also, give me higher. So it helps you to bargain. So while you're crying, while the borrowers are crying, the people who affix their money should be celebrating. So, and you, at the same time, you can be a borrower and a lender. You can fix your money in the bank and also go and borrow money somewhere. As this one is making money, you're also making money in your business. So this is how we need to understand issues of the economy.
There's so much financial literacy amongst Ugandans.
And that's why we are here. That's why we are here. And Bank of Uganda, we are going to go so much into the economy to teach, to tell people how issues of economics, economic empowerment, financial literacy. Because we believe when the public gets to understand what we are doing exactly, then our work will be so easy. But also, we can't preside over an economy as the monitors of the economy, and then people are not well empowered with finances. The more you get empowered in finances, the more monetary policy becomes easy to do, because then you understand the actions, you follow the actions, and then it becomes easier. But also, most importantly, the more you get money, the more the central bank is happy. Because then, first of all, the interest rates will go down, because you're saving a lot of money, you know how to use money very well. You'll go to the bank and you can easily negotiate and say, give me this money at this interest rate. They don't accept, you walk away, because you have your savings after all. So, but the most important thing is that we need to understand these little financial literacy tactics and the skills, so that we can ably apply them, and then we are okay. So
actually, in developed countries, we have people that have even become loan sharks just because of those financial tactics.
Not even in developed countries, even here we have sharks. We have sharks. We have people who are playing around with their online things, and then here. You saw the other time in the US, FTX. Yeah, this is the coin here. The same things you're doing with the Bitcoin and all that, you can do it in an area where you're actually seeing your money growing, and you can even diversify it, and you can even move it from here, put it here in an investment which is working well. In some of these coins, you can't even access your money. You can't. So I don't know how, and this for us, our Bank of Uganda is to advise you as we advise the government. You take our advice. Well, you don't take
so
it.
Now, why so? One of the things to go back to the question was you had to safeguard the people borrowing,
but also the people lending. Yes. How did we do that? So one, if you had a loan before COVID, those who borrowed during COVID lockdown and after, we had no issues with them. Why? The Baganda again say akali amagwa. By the time you borrow, yes. By the time you decide to borrow,
at that time,
then you know what you're going for. Maybe you're producing sanitizer, which is on demand at that time. Maybe you're producing food, which people are demanding at that time. But we believe by the time you
borrowed to survive, Waiswa.
Yeah, but
that would be funny, because where were you going to get what to pay for? But at that time of COVID, some people borrowed.
But I also
to survive. Some borrowed for treatment.
Yes, that you're right. But I also don't believe that any serious lender like a bank can lend you money to consume. It's against the banking principles. You don't lend someone to consume. You only, unless if they are consuming in terms of buying equipment for production. Because that money is supposed to be paid back.
Yes.
So any lender, any reasonable lender, gives their money to an entity or an individual who is into production, so that they are able to pay money back. Otherwise, if you're going to consume, then where are you going to get money to pay back? That's why it's difficult to find an institution that is lending money to someone who's going to do a wedding. Unless if you're disguising that I'm borrowing money to do business, then you go for a wedding.
Like because most people do, they take loans with very good proposals. They offer banks very credible, that is collateral.
Yes.
Yet they actually know they're going to use this money for something.
You see the difference that between money lenders and banks, commercial banks that we supervise, which you call the supervised financial institutions. The difference is that the money lenders might look at your collateral. How big is it? So that if you fail, I'll sell it either to myself or anyone else, and I benefit from it. But the supervised financial institutions look at your ability to pay back, because they are more interested in paying back the money than your security. Why? It is tedious to liquidate that security. One, the banks are not supposed to sell that security themselves. they have to look for an auctioneer. That's a long process. But as they are doing that, their money is tied up already. That's why when you see banks in courts, it's not nice because the money is being tied up in courts, yet that money is supposed to be making profit. They are supposed to be lending to other people to make profit. So no bank will celebrate that this person has failed, so I'm going to take over the security. No, because it's tedious to get that money back by selling that property. Sometimes you're even there, you want to go and sell property, then the owner of property goes to court. So you take some good years to offset that case.
Yes.
So no, and while you're doing that, for us as Bank of Uganda, do you know what we do? We are holding on to your capital. Because the commercial banks have 25 billion as their capital. But it's called paid up capital. Paid up meaning you come at Bank of Uganda and you pay in that banking hall and you give us a receipt when you want to start a bank. And you say, oh, so now you're ready.
25 million?
Billion. Yes.
To start a commercial bank?
Yes. And by the way, we are revising it. Yes. In the new law, we are looking at a higher capital than that. Because when you are called a bank, we want you to be called a bank. If you are called a man, you must be a man. You don't want to have a woman man.
We don't want to have a bank in form of sack or
No. We don't have to. Then here you are a lady. Here, if you're a man, then if you're also a lady, also need to be a lady by doing what a lady. So if you call a bank, you must be a bank. Show that you're a bank by being so strong in your capital and everything, so that when you have anything, the capital buffer is big enough to ensure that we protect our depositors' funds. So that capital of 25 billion is only placed in the bank. So that if you do any manyanga there, you lend recklessly, and the people you have lent to don't pay back the money, we cut off an equivalent of that money. Because why? The money the banks are lending is not their money. It's your money. Remember what I started with? When you take their fixed deposit, you go back at home and sleep. I've given you my 25 million. I want you to pay me back 20% or 10% per month, per annum. So you'll go home and sleep. You can't even travel abroad. So where are you getting the confidence that you will not come back when this bank has closed? Some of these banks are foreign. So you'll come here and then the banks have closed, and where do you go to claim your money? You'll come to Bank of Uganda, right? So that's why that 25 million capital is not for the bank to use for lending. The money they use for lending comes from you, that you take their fixed deposits. They create loans out of it and lend to others. Their capital, they bring as capital, which you call paid up capital, stays with us, so that if you do anything, if you fail to pay money, we get off from your capital and we are able to pay back for their money. And then for us, what we do, we come back to your shareholders and tell them, bring more capital to fill up the 25 billion. Because we have removed off this one. So it's our defense to protect your depositors.
Now let's look at the measures that you use to protect this.
So the credit review measure now, that's how it comes in now. We said you can go to the bank. Those who had loans before.
Yes.
And you were caught unawares with COVID lockdown. You know, it was just overnight and the president said, from tomorrow, no taxi movement. Some people bought taxis using COVID relief. So you who had a loan before, it was operating well, not a loss, because don't tell us that you don't go to the bank and say, but I'm also affected by COVID, please give me credit relief. Yet the loan wasn't already performing well. It means for you, you already had problems. But if it was performing well, you go back to the bank and tell them, my loan was performing well, but I was caught up by COVID, now I can't perform. So they look into the system, and the system actually, you have been paying well. It has been a performing loan. So what they will do, you ask for, if you are able to pay somehow, that you're not completely closed, like those guys who had restaurants, people had reduced, but they would still get some revenue. You continue paying, but you ask them to reduce on your installment you're supposed to be paying per month to a level where you are able now to pay based on your revenues. And then, so what it means is that they will now restructure, what we call restructuring. They will restructure your loan, and they come to a new desired level of installment payment, and then the other money that you are not able to pay this month, they put it together again, they extend your payment period. For example, if you are supposed to end in the next 1 year, you can continue paying up the next 3 years to pay for the other monies that you are not able to pay every month.
Okay.
That's why it's called restructuring. It's just a matter of playing around with your loan again to enable you to pay conveniently, but now with a longer period of time. This saves in two areas. One, it gives you the convenience. We have seen people who have died because of pressure. So it relieves of, like the word says, credit relief. It gives you that relief of paying at your convenience, convenient amount, but also it also secures your collateral. Imagine many times this loan is borrowed with the collateral of your house where you're residing with your family. So it helps you now to have your house secured. The house is secured, but most importantly also, you have the convenience. The pressure is off your shoulders to pay all this big amount of money which you can't afford, and then you're in trouble, and then you're running up and here, even at home now, you're too tough at home. Everything at work because of the loan. So it helps you to have that convenience, lenience with payment, at the same time saving your collateral. Because the moment you take 3 months without, that is 90 days, without paying your installments, that loan becomes non-performing. And now the banks come in to start recovering that loan. So this credit relief was to enable you, not the banks start coming. Do you know what it means by people calling you? We are selling your property. That pressure, and then before you know it, they come to your house and they have written for sale. You have pressure and you can't easily recover. So that was intended for that.
Okay, so that was loan restructuring.
Yes.
Now, what happened for those who are totally closed?
Again, still, if you're totally closed, still you can get the loan restructuring in a way that you get, we get what we call there's what we call the moratorium, where you can get a period of time without, like for example, we started in April 2020, and the credit relief ran up for 1 year up to September 2021, and we were monitoring. So you could ask for that whole year without paying your installments and interest, so that the bank can now just restructure that amount you're supposed to pay in that year and they extend it to future payment. What does it mean? It means that you still pay your interest, because even, remember what I said, the banks are also getting a loan. So from you, the bank has got a loan from you. You can't say, I've forgiven you. So even the bank can't forgive you. So you continue paying interest. Only that the bank was not supposed to charge what we call the penal interest. Penal interest means if you fail to pay your installment, they penalize you for not paying that interest. So it was a matter of just agreeing with the banks, your convenience. What is your convenience? Is it stopping the payment of the installments until the period you've agreed, or you reduce the installment, you pay slowly, and then the remaining, they bring together and you pay in the future? It was about your determination. If you had some way of getting some little money, you could continue paying some little installment until the future date. But if you were completely closed down, you would ask for a period of time without paying the installment, as we waited for the president to open up the economy, and then you start paying later. But it doesn't mean, some people misconstrue that one for forgiveness. And that's why you've asked the question, why are all these properties
being taken? Yes.
Some people misconstrue it for completely being forgiven. That the president said, forgive us the loans. So some people stayed there, and even when we opened up the economy, they didn't even bother to go back to the bank. That's another issue. But there are those who honestly lost their business and they had no way of even starting again. Now, the banks also have no way. Because you who lent them the money, you cannot say, I've also forgiven you, the bank. If there was a way like that, then the bank would also easily forgive. That's why government had to come up with the schools, how they can help them with the money. If they help with the money, then you go to the bank and offset your loan. Otherwise, the bank system is clear. This one has lent us, we have created a loan, we have lent to you. So we pay this one back, you pay us, we also pay this one back. That's how this works. So, but also, the credit also helped the banks in a way, the lenders in a way that, remember when we say that you don't pay, your people fail to pay, what do? We grab your capital until they pay. But the credit also helped the banks in a way that once we extend the credit for that loan, it means also the banks can't hold out their capital. They can continue using their capital because the circumstances are that even the other borrower has been allowed to extend their period. Even you are allowed to extend your period until the credit relief is done.
Okay. Now, our viewers, you can be part of the topic of discussion this morning by simply using the number on your screen. That is 0709 60 25 92. 0709 60 25 92. Send us an SMS message, send us a WhatsApp message on that number. Please do that, and we shall have Waiswa here explain or answer to your concerns. I'll be reading the messages in the next few minutes. Now, do you think, because when I look at statements from Bank of Uganda, the final creditor, that is relief measures, expired in September this very year. Have we achieved? Things seem to be more complicated, Waiswa. Have we gotten the intended purpose?
Yeah, I agree with you that things are complicated, but that's the whole world. In the whole world, things haven't been good after COVID. So we must first of all come to terms with that, that things have not, even our decisions must equally be tough, even our individual decisions, wherever we are. So, but did we achieve our objectives? Yes. If it wasn't, if we didn't have the credit relief measures, I am telling you, whatever, maybe some newspapers would have needed to have the whole paper to advertise only properties for sale. There are many people, the next time I come here, I will come with all the statistics. There are many people who have benefited from this one. People whose properties have not been auctioned or sold simply because of the credit relief measures.
My brother, when I was reading the Daily Monitor, one of the dailies, I was shocked on property up for auction.
Because remember after COVID, there's
Vision, just go to the papers this morning, our viewers, and look at how many properties are up for auction by these banks because of failure.
I agree, Robert, but also remember, Robert, that there are people, like you said, there are businesses that completely just closed down, like you said. What are the banks going to do? You only have to surrender the property that you gave in as collateral, because the banks also have to pay back the money to Robert, who picked there as a fixed deposit.
Oh, their guarantee fee, the capital, you call it capital, that's given to the central bank, would be...
All those aspects must be put into So, I agree that things, but the moment you see, that's why you even give in the security collateral, that in case of failure to pay, this is what is happening. But also, this in the different aspects, I want to come to the personal level